We had ordered some weed and our guy dropped it off, and she passes me the bag and she's like, oh my God, this smells so good. And I go to smell it and I can't smell anything. And that is basically how I found out that I had the virus, and that was how it began.
For many across the globe, our lives have changed. Major cities have slowed down or stopped completely. From sobering numbers detailing lives lost to supply and testing shortages, or the rate of unemployment at an all-time high and concerns about infection rates climbing back. These days, it's hard to find anything that feels like good news. But social media has shown that things could be creeping towards something like normal. In between TikTok challenges and people sharing their cooking skills, many are sharing video clips from around the world with cities slowly coming back to life. In parts of the U.S., ER hospitals are seeing shifts in the number of people seeking emergency treatment and sharing clips of the recovered patients leaving the hospital. We spoke with two women, Imani in New Orleans and Bothaina in New York, to talk about their experience in quarantine, their recovery from COVID-19, and what they hope the future brings.
So a majority of my week revolved around, and my routine revolved around going to work and meetings and all of the things that come with life in New York, such as after work happy hours and hanging out with my friends and brunch.
I'm a brunch girl, so brunch every weekend. I am 24 years old and I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I am a second grade teacher. So Monday through Friday work. I work all day, pretty much. I'm there from 7:30 till about 4:30ish, and then I babysit some kids, so I go pick them up from school, stay over there until around 8, and I do that 2 days a week.
I realized that something was a little bit weird because I woke up one day and I had what felt like a cold. Also, I had just had eye surgery, so I felt like maybe that had something to do with it.
I didn't get all my symptoms at the same time. It was a few daily increments. So when I started noticing symptoms, the first symptom that I noticed was that I had a cough. And so that went on for a few days. And then I would say about 2 or 3 days later, I started getting chills.
So I thought everything was all good and whatever, it's just a little cold. But my friend who had come into town to help take care of me after my eye procedure, so we had quarantined together, we were super safe. We had ordered some weed and our guy dropped it off, and she passes me the bag and she's like, oh my God, this smells so good. And I go to smell it and I can't smell anything. And that is basically how I found out that I had the virus, and that was how it began. It happened pretty much over the course of 5 hours between when I first started feeling weird and me realizing that I have symptoms for real.
So a day or two later, I started having chest pains, and that was a little bit alarming, but I was getting kind of anxious at the time. So I was maybe it's just anxiety. Everything, I had an excuse for everything, a reason for everything. So I was just trying to brush it off. And then 2 days later, I couldn't smell or taste anything. And so that was when I started getting really worried. And I remember that was over the weekend. So I want to say I lost my smell and taste on Saturday or Sunday. And then I went and got tested on Tuesday at a drive-thru. The testing process was very interesting. So I had to stay in my car the entire time. The line was really, really long. I think I got there. They cut off the line a few cars after me, so they'll see about 250 people a day, but also they don't let you know what spot you are in line when you get there. So a lot of people will wait for hours just to be turned away once they realize okay, we're at 250 now. And the test itself was very painful. So, it's that long stick thing. It kind of looks like a Q-tip, and they just stick it all the way up your nose. And it felt like it came up to my eyes. My eyes were instantly watering. And then they took it out and I was like, okay, it's done. And they're like, nope, other side. So it was very, very painful. And once it was done, I was very just happy to be done with it. But everyone there was very kind. And I know they had been there all day, but everyone had a really positive attitude and was really helpful and nice.
I think New York City did as good of a job as it could have, given everything we knew at the time. I don't I think Cuomo in the beginning was a little too soft and should have definitely erred on the side of caution. But once he realized what was going on, you could definitely see that and nationally, he's been one of the most vocal people about getting more help and quarantining and being safe during this lockdown.
I think it's effective now. I think they definitely could have been a little bit more proactive originally, but they're doing what they need to do now. And I know that a lot of people also weren't taking the guidelines seriously when they were first administered. So I think that they've had to get more strict over time, which they've done.
I mean, it's kind of weird though, because like watching the city shut down like this is really, really, really weird. So, I'm a huge advocate for like wanting to make sure that everybody is safe and putting people over profits. But I would be remiss in lying if I said that it isn't weird to see the city look like this right now.
I'm a little bit concerned about restaurants just going out of business due to this, because New Orleans has a really big tourism industry. So I know we get a lot of our money through restaurants and clubs and bars. And so I'm a little bit concerned about how many of those businesses are able to stay afloat during this time. I do work with a lot of people who were here during Katrina. The main comparison that I hear, I think, just as a teacher is what this is going to do to schools and what this will look like for schools, because Katrina had a big impact on the school system, and since then we've been mainly charter. So I think that thinking about how this is going to impact schools is the biggest connection that I've heard so far.
Even with shelter-in-place orders, mandates on social distancing, and required use of face masks in public places like in New York to flatten the curve, there are still some who believe the pandemic has been blown out of proportion.
So what do I say to the science? I say I don't believe your science because I believe my God.
While states debate safe methods to loosen restrictions, residents of states like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania have seen a spike in protests, with participants saying the protective measures infringe on the liberty of the people and are demanding ordinances be lifted to get the country working again.
I mean, it's really disappointing, right? Because it's like a lot of those people you have to assume are the all lives matter people. And it's just interesting because it's like you don't think that your life matters. You don't think the lives of your community matter enough right now. Like, we're not even making this political or racial or anything, but there is a disproportionate amount of people of color who are essential workers and who are, frontline workers who are out there. And it's disappointing to see that people are legitimately putting $1 over human life.
I would tell those people that it's not worth it. I think when you're going out and you're protesting, obviously you're just exposing yourself to way more people. And I think that the reality of the situation is that we don't know who's infected because so many people are not showing any symptoms. So you're so eager to get out of the house, but like you could have it and not know, or you could come into contact with someone that has it and doesn't know. You could be protesting alongside somebody that has it and then you get sick, or you have asthma, or you have, underlying heart problems, and it's worse for you.
Honestly, I'm not thinking at all about going back into the world. I'm looking forward to seeing some of my friends. And we've talked in my friend groups about what it's going to be like when we do start visiting each other. But we know that like the days of our 3-hour brunches are long gone.
First thing I'm going to do when this is all cleared out is go to brunch and eat some crawfish and drink some.
I mean, my hope is that people will, learn from this, that we need to take more caution and pay more attention to what our scientists and all the experts have to say. I hope that we stop feeling like, this isn't a higher power and like none of us have any control over what happens, because the truth is that we do have control and we can decide ourselves how long something like this is going to happen.
What I would like to see come out of this is just people being more cautious overall, just people being more mindful of their surroundings and more mindful of their interactions with people. When all of this is lifted, I really want to get my nails done. Like, when I get my nails done, I'm dying. Outside of that, I think I'm gonna want to spend some time with a friend in their house for a little bit and then invite them to my house. It is really interesting. Like, I can't really wrap my mind around, I keep trying to think of, what life will be like after this, but it's really hard for me to try and pinpoint that. So it's like, I have to just wait and see how things go. But I just hope that this encourages people to be more safe and more mindful and more cautious.